Okay, so we're on session number, I think we're on session number 4 or 3. Actually, I take that back. So session number 3. Well, I think we had the visual one, second, 3. Boom. Here we go. Session number 3. We are going to be talking about, we talked about vision, kind of mission, just tactical things. What was so important about vision, mission? All of this is under the guise of culture, what makes up culture, what makes up company, how people head into a certain direction. And today we're going to be spending some time talking about, core convictions, why you have a why, so to speak, what's underneath that, and why do you go through the exercise of doing that. Talk a little bit about our DNA here at our firm, and then who obviously thrives. So did everybody get a chance to go through the material? I saw a lot of stuff flying around, so I'm assuming that we did. So I guess my first question to you guys is, what do I mean when I say core convictions? Does somebody want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, so what I got from it is just personal things that you believe in that you won't budge on from other people. So let's say like you believe in honesty and truth. So like that was one for me. Like if people are not honest and truthful with you, like you are not going to have a good time interacting with them, let alone want to interact with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, and what would you say, at least from my perspective, what was the difference, I said, between a core conviction and just a value?
I believe you said values are nice tos and convictions are have tos.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of delineate between the two of like, there's things that I would like to do and they would be great, but then there's sort of these core things in your life that you just say, hey man, these are not areas that I'm going to budge. I think I use the example of, if Christmas time comes around and I say, I'm just not going to have chocolate this year, but chances are I'm probably going to have the chocolate, right, when I'm there. And so it was a value that I'd certainly like to hold to. It's just not a, have to, right? I'm probably going to buckle. And so when you hear that, what do you guys think of? Like, what makes you think of core convictions? You guys agree with the delineation? Does that make sense? What I'm talking about? Good. So if you guys go through some of the core convictions, what were some of the things that you guys learned about just maybe our core convictions? Any ideas?
One of the first ones I saw was honesty, no matter the consequence, I believe is one of them.
Right. Yeah. So honesty, no matter the consequence. So why, because you hear this quite a bit, like, why is honesty such a big deal? Right. I mean, what do you think? I mean, just if you think about, because sometimes you just hear, I want to be honest. But, there's a lot of nuances to that because, that kind of manifests itself in a lot of different scenarios, right? So think about in your own interactions every day, you're faced, maybe you're working somewhere and, somebody kind of says, hey, just don't say this, right? Or maybe just kind of keep that one back, from telling anybody because you could get in trouble. So what do you think is the big deal about honesty? Who cares?
I would say staying true to yourself and to others around you.
Yeah, so honesty helps you just kind of have your own peace of mind, right? It's like, okay, I feel like I was honest and I can, lay my head on my pillow, right? What else?
I think it helps both the clients that you're working with and your own employees. So like if your employees see their boss doing something dishonest or something like that, they probably won't think that he's being truthful in other situations. And then employers, people that you're working with, like clients and stuff like that, if they know that you're honest and trustworthy, they'll probably be more willing to keep working with you and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you start to build this sort of foundation of an undergirding. If all of a sudden you're interacting with somebody, it's kind of like if somebody keeps coming to me and I just hear them chipping at people all the time around me, like, da 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 da. Then you start to kind of go, gosh, I wonder what they say when I'm not around, you know, because you start to sort of thematically go, oh, this is a pattern. And, you know, so honesty is just one of those things. You start to kind of go, gosh, I wonder if this is sort of how it works all the time, you know, here. So that's a good one. What else? What's the big deal with honesty?
I say honesty is reliability. Like if you can
Yeah.
keep somebody all the time to not sugarcoat things or
Yes.
radio.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So like, you know, what do they say? The old, you know, it's better to have a slap on the cheek from a friend than a kiss on the cheek. And then they turn around and kind of back talk you, right? So to speak, right? You'd rather just hear the truth, might have a little sting to it, right? But you kind of know like, oh, well, you know what? They were honest. Like you can't fault them for that. And so that's somebody you can rely on because you know that they're going to do what they say and say what they do. So there's just a level of integrity in those people that you feel. So, I mean, if you kind of look at this idea of just honesty, there's, it's almost foundational, right? So you think you're starting to build trust with somebody, and trust is the foundation by which you start to develop a culture, you start to develop, or at least a healthy one. So you can start to trust that people are going to do what they say they're going to do, and keep that consistent. Okay. What else? What other convictions do you think are like really important in your own life? Like what are some convictions? Would you guys, some of you want to share some of your own convictions that you just kind of go, you know, outside of honesty, what would be another thing you'd say this is really important to me?
I think treating people with respect and kindness is kind of one for me that's very important, probably right next to honesty for me, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just being respectful and kind to people, treating them with dignity is a big deal. Why is that a big deal to you?
I think just because like how I was raised is the right thing to do. Like it's kind of one of those things I've been taught over and over is the right way to go about life. And so I think it's important to do that just because I know when someone's kind of rude to me, it doesn't make me feel good. So I think you want to always be nice and kind to others.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. I like that.
I said basically the same thing. I just said treat others the way you want to be treated, which is what my parents always told me like growing up.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of like what he said, you kind of, if you're going to be mean to others, then you should expect it coming back to you another way around.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want this sort of duplicitous thing going on where you have a relationship with somebody and you want some mutual respect. You know, that's a big one. What else? What are other?
I said keeping my word. I think when I give my word,
Yeah.
to keep it.
Yeah. You want to be a person that when you say something, people aren't kind of going, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's 50-50, right? You want to be the kind of person they go, when she almost says that she's going to do something, it's not perfect, but I can trust that she's going to do it, right? And that's a big deal. Why is that important to you?
Oh yeah, no, you've just said it. I don't want to speak, and then people are like, and then they take it lightly. I want them to be able to trust that I will do what I say when
Yeah,
I say I'll do it. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a big one. Super important. Very, very important. What else? What does somebody else have?
One that someone that I interviewed or asked about their core convictions that I kind of want to incorporate myself was they said that one of their core convictions is just to take care of themselves. So for example, they had a lot of stressful situations, in work and different things like that. And so one thing that they don't move on is they always have to do some type of exercise during the day so that they, relieve stress and stuff like that. So I think taking care of yourself is probably a conviction that I want to be better at.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right? Like just, working out, going to the gym, and just, being able to have an outlet for your stress is a big deal. So that's really important. What else? Anybody else have anything on the conviction side?
One that I got actually from a friend that I really liked was open-mindedness.
Hmm.
So interacting with others, kind of listening to other people's viewpoints, understanding that like you're not always right, and that like incorporating others' ideas can come to a better solution.
Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah, just being open, being curious, listening to people, gathering information, trying to learn from people's perspectives. That's always a fun one for me that I think started to incorporate probably more 4 or 5 years ago, just realizing, oh my gosh, and I never would have thought of that. So just being curious and listening to different people's perspectives allows you to really to grow and have that. So what do you guys think drives like values, convictions? Like what do you think, like how do people get, you know, to this place of getting a conviction? And Riley, you said obviously family, just kind of heard that over and over. My poor kids get to hear it over and over again, right? All the time. And they're like, okay. That's 1,000th time you said that, right? So they get lots of repetition from Mr. Potter. So what are some other reasons people get convictions? What do you think?
Religion.
Yeah, religion, their faith can definitely drive their convictions, right? That's a big one for sure, right? That's a grounding by which they stand on. What else?
You kind of talked about this with like innovation and frustration, but you'll have these scenarios where you get frustrated and then it becomes just a core belief to you that like you need out of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about like if maybe your friend, Austin, maybe they had a lot of health issues or something, and they just finally said, that's enough is enough. I'm not gonna, do this anymore. And so that just was this catalyst that drove them into designing a conviction that they weren't just going to budge on. Because sometimes you have to go through some trials and tribulations to really foster these things where you go, oh my gosh, I never want to have that happen again, or I never want to experience that feeling again. I never want to be the recipient of that. And so that's going to be something I'm going to hold fast to in our lives. So, these are really important things in order for you to design yourself, right? Like it's really important. That's why I'm having you guys go through this exercise, that you're designing and thinking through what are my core convictions. So like what does a core conviction do? I mean, okay, so we talk about it and we're all like, okay, yeah, that's cool, that's great. But like what's the point? Like what does it do in the context of how you function day in and day out? Any ideas? What do these things do for you in your daily decisions? What do you think?
I think they kind of like dictate and drive your daily decisions.
Yeah.
So I think your core convictions are kind of like what you rely on when you're faced with a decision, whether big or small, to kind of be that foundation on to decide what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like that kind of like you come up to this point, something's coming, right? And all of a sudden you're going, Chioma, you're thinking, okay, I'm super tired. I really want to go to bed, but I told so and so I was going to get this thing done by tomorrow, right? So like that's that moment in time where the conviction could be the thing that kind of pushes you over that edge and says, no, I got to finish this. I'm tired and I want to go to bed, but my conviction drives me to make that decision so that I'm doing the thing that I know is most in line with my value system, my core convictions, so that I can live not a duplicitous life, but one that is a life of integrity, right? Where it doesn't mean I'm perfect, but it does mean that I'm consistent, right? And one of my coaches used to say, we're not looking for perfection, but we're looking for permanence, right? So just this idea of there's constancy in your life in making decisions in all that you do in your life. And so that's super important for you, because again, you finally say, hey, I'm not going to ever do that again. And that becomes your thing to help you make decisions, because we got a lot of choices to make in life. Don't you guys think? I mean, you got a lot of stuff coming at you guys, way more than I ever did. And I feel it too, because I'm flooded with a lot of this stuff, but you just got stuff coming in at you all the time. And so just think of convictions as this sort of funnel for you to help you say, you know what, does that funnel through my convictions really well? And if not, I just do this, like, bye, no, that doesn't work, right? If you're interviewing a company and you start listening to their convictions or lack thereof, maybe they don't even have any, but all of a sudden you start listening to their convictions and you say, do I line right up with most of those and feel like I could live within the boundaries of those convictions, right? Or I don't. And so ultimately you start to drift away from that. What about in your friendships? Do you find yourself lining up with friendships that tend to meet your convictions most? Would you say that that's a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So just, again, you're starting to see thematically, you might not even know with, some specifics as to what those convictions are, but it's a huge part subconsciously of how you're making choices all day long. Okay. So this is just a good opportunity for you to sort of take that unawareness and maybe bring it to the surface and become aware of, like, what are my top 10 convictions that I hold fast to, that I wouldn't budge on, that I really feel are super important. And then it's something you probably need to keep revisiting, right? And asking yourself the question, in our household, we have about 12 different convictions we go through. And we go through a few of them a week and we just kind of walk through them, right? Because I want my kids to just hear this. And what do you think is happening to me as I'm sharing those convictions with my kids? What do you think is happening when I'm sharing those with them verbally?
I think you're
reaffirming
confirming.
it, are you? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Exactly, right? You're confirming that. And then what happens to the level of accountability?
Goes up.
Goes up. Because dad just said that. So guess who's also held accountable to those? Dad, right? So all of a sudden, when my 10-year-old daughter says, well, I don't know if you really handled that appropriately, right? And the answer is she's right, because we now have this way that we function within our house that was driven and put together by these convictions that's higher than me. So I'm just as much in the position of having to submit to those as much as the kids are. Does that make sense? So it's really important that what happens is when you start sharing those verbally, it's codifying, solidifying what it is you believe, and it's also helping you held accountable for it, which is a good thing, right? Sometimes we think of accountability, and what's the very first thing we hear when we hear accountability? Do we always think positive or negative a lot of times?
I think negative usually.
Yeah, I don't be held accountable, right? We think that's like a negative thing, but accountability actually is a real positive thing if it's done the right way, because it just helps you really operate the way you want to operate anyways. It's just helping you kind of fall back in line with those things, right? So it's a decision-making tool that is super important for you to do, okay? So then you kind of do these convictions, and we have about 10 or 11 in our own firm. I'll just quickly highlight them. I don't go into details. The first one is I own it. The second one is manage priorities, not time. The third one is successful failure, doing 70% and then running. The fourth one is being candid but gracious to people. We believe in being better together and working collaboratively to win. We have one called You Matter to Me. This is all about the fact that we want people to feel like they actually matter as people, right? And not just projects and processes and things like that. The other one is handing the baton to the next, very much about, pouring into the next person. Innovation comes out of frustration is a big part of our culture. And then being lean and nimble for us, and then knowing and delighting the person we serve. So those are our core convictions. And so I don't know if, Michelle, you want to chime in on anything about your experience on the core convictions here.
Yeah. So I would say our core convictions have definitely given me like a level of freedom. Like actually specifically the 70% and go has been a huge one for me because I tend to struggle with like perfectionistic stuff. And so knowing that I can got some things to say. Knowing that I can have 70% of the information and then run with it and actually start to move in that project or task and feel confident in that is a huge deal for me. Because, prior to, I can definitely say it was like 100% and go, like 110%. Maybe I need to know everything about it before I even start it, because God forbid I fail. Right. But Dave has given us the authority to like, hey, if you have 70% of the information, feel free to launch. And if you fail, you fail. And then we get to learn from it. And then we get to try something different. Right. So that's just one example of how like our core convictions were definitely created to give you a level of freedom and efficiency at work, which I think that would make everyone happy. So.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I really like the way you put that too, just giving a sense of freedom, right? Where you kind of know and you have peace of mind that, like, oh, here's how we operate. And we've had a couple of opportunities to live these out, right, as a team where we've had some successful failures and we got to walk through them. And people have got to experience that because of the I owning it. We don't blame and hide, that we've actually had people come forward and say, hey, I failed on that and I need to let you know. And then we were able to walk through it together as a team, right? And so it wasn't like a negative thing, but it was a positive thing where we got to learn and grow together, right? So these are really the way we function all the time and we operate. So have you guys ever actually thought of part of your interviewing process of working for a company of asking them what their core convictions are? Yeah.
I ask about culture, but not core convictions.
Yeah. So that might be encourage you guys as you go wherever you end up. If might be here, might be somewhere else. As you ask that question, like, what are your core convictions, and how does the culture actually manifest itself in real life, day after day after day? Like, one of the most important things you guys can do is to see if you can hitch your wagon up to a really good leader, because that's where you're going to thrive, right? If somebody is really crystal clear on the way they function in their business, why they function the way they do, and how that actually plays out in real life, right? That is really important, right? That's where people either have a fantastic experience at work or a horrible one. I was just on the plane today and I was listening. I'm always kind of a little listening ear all the time to people, right? So I heard this guy behind me. He's like, work for these 3 companies. It was horrible. The culture was bad. And the company I now is great. It's this and this and this. So I was just listening to him express the culture, right? And what was going on there. And so it was a on purpose culture, right? It didn't just happen by chance. There's always a culture somewhere. The question is it one that is thriving and moving you in the direction you need to go, or is it one that is not? And it's just sort of dysfunctional and nobody quite knows what to do and how do you handle conflict, and all those things aren't laid out. So you're just kind of left to sort of wing it to yourself, right? And so there's a lot of fear and uncertainty, and that's when people start getting into blaming and hiding and kind of politicking at an office, right? Because they're not quite sure if they have the freedom to speak their mind, and all these things have become real dysfunctional in a workplace. So, which, by the way, unfortunately is most of the places. And I hear this a lot. So anyways, I just want to encourage you guys as you're journeying wherever you're going to go, that be on purpose with that question. And not only will that be healthy for you, but you'll definitely stand out because most people that come to us don't ever ask that. Some people do. And when they do, it makes me go, person's thinking, right? Super important. You're going to spend 8 or 9 hours somewhere. Definitely want to make sure it's a place you feel like you're going to thrive. Okay. Okay, so any other comments, questions before we move on? Okay. What was that like for you guys? Was that a good little exercise for you to kind of go through some of the convictions for you?
Yeah.
Good. Glad. Okay, so the next little segment is this idea of why. So give me your thoughts on like, why do we have a why? What's the purpose of that? What do you think?
It's what keeps you motivated, right? When you get tired.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that fuel, right? That passion and that fuel that keeps driving you when you're just like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. This just isn't worth it at the end of the day. And so you really need to know, why am I doing this? And it can't just be somebody else's that you adopted. It's got to be personal. It's got to move you. It has to have some depth to it, because it's got to be strong enough when things get kind of wonky to just say, because I can tell you, like I get lots of people that say, you're never going to make it. You guys aren't going to do well. I hear that all the time. Right. And so we have a deep why that just helps push past those things all the time. So that's a good one. What else? Why a why?
So kind of how I took it is it like provides you with a sense of purpose.
Yes. Yeah. Deep purpose. Right. And do you think that's really important for us to have a sense of meaning and purpose in what you're doing? And just feel like you're just kind of going through the motions?
I feel it's super important because you're more likely to work hard on it and actually give it your all when you have like a deeper meaning behind it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I was just out of high school and I was working at a plant down in Utah, downtown Salt Lake City. It was my friend's mom. They own this big chemical plant. And one of the managers had me on the assembly line, like twisting these tops. I was doing the same thing over and over for like 3 hours, right? Just twisting tops, twisting tops. And after 3 hours, I walked in and was like, I can't do this anymore. He goes, what are you talking about? And I said, this is driving me bananas. I said, this is great. And I'm not saying it's bad that people do it. I said, man, there's just no purpose behind it. I feel like I'm just mindlessly, twisting tops all day long, right? And he said, good. I said, what do you mean good? He said, well, was waiting for you to get to that place so that I can tell you why you need to go to college and right. And learn more. So, we need to have some purpose and meaning behind what it is that we're doing. So that's good. What else?
The bit that stuck out to me the most was from Simon's video when he said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yeah, it's a big deal. That's a big deal. What do you think he means by that? What's he talking about? Remember the example he used?
I think he used computers. It was like Apple and another company. I forget the other one because they weren't as successful, obviously.
No.
I think in today's world, there's so many, companies and so much competition that like to really stand out from your competition, you'd have a sound why that motivates people to kind of choose you over your competition.
Yeah. So there's something, people are buying something that's much deeper and is very personalized to them. And it touches a certain part of their soul that goes, yeah, that's what I want, and I'll do anything to get there. Right. So it's a huge part of what fuels us in our life. I mean, we really have to think through why we're doing what we're doing. Like, let me ask you guys a question. Why are you guys going to school? I'm curious. I mean, what is it that's driving you to want to go to school? You thought about that? I mean, think about it. Like for a day, you're going to school, you're going to spend 4 years, getting a degree. And there's something much deeper than just like, well, it's the thing you got to do. Maybe it is. I don't know. But what is it that's like driving you and making you say, this is why I'm going to school, right? Something that's personal and something that is really fueling you. Any ideas?
I mean, for me, I know
Go
that,
ahead. Nope, nope, go ahead.
okay. For me, I was just going to say that I hold myself to a pretty high standard and I want to be the very best person that I can be. And I feel like being educated and knowledgeable in certain aspects is something that's super important for me to be at that level.
Yeah. So, and why is that important for you to be the best version of yourself? Why does that even matter?
I mean, I think it's just kind of the vision that I have, or the thing that I'm trying to work towards, because I think it will bring me the most happiness when I can look back and just feel that I'm succeeding in doing those things. So
Good. Yeah, it's good. You know, I'm kind of asking these questions to press a little bit more in that and to have you think through like, well, why, you know, I might even ask that now. I'm not going to, but you know, I might, if we were just having a one-on-one coffee, I might say, well, why do you want to be happy? Right? Like, why does that even matter? Right? And so just pressing and asking that question could just take you just a notch deeper to go, oh, that's it. Right? That was the thing that I was trying to get at that would move me. So good. I like that. Thank you. Jim, I think you were going to say something.
Yes, I was going to say that I think that mine is just a small part of a greater plan, like Austin said. It's just a small step that would lead me to something greater, which, you know, that's the big plan.
Yeah.
And getting a degree just kind of, it's just one of the smaller goals, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's something driving you to want to get to somewhere that you feel like you've reached a place of something inside of your soul that says, okay, I have accomplished this. And there's a sense of satisfaction behind that. That's good. What else? What about the other guys? What's your why of why you're going to school?
I would. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say to learn what I would want to get into, and then choose your major, and then try and become more and more professional in it, and having that sense of an accomplishment of actually graduating, and it helps having a degree to actually get interviews to go where you want to go.
It's awesome. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Ben?
I'd probably say to like personally develop and grow yourself as well as educate yourself. So at like some point in my life, I can leave an everlasting mark on the world.
Ah, okay. I like that. So leave an everlasting mark.
I don't know what that mark is yet, but we will figure
It's
that out.
okay. That's all right. Remember, we said that part of the journey is fuzziness. It's okay to be fuzzy for a while, right? That's good. What about you, Riley?
I think, I mean, right now, 3 years in, my why is to graduate because I've been here for 3 years and continue to develop myself professionally to have kind of a path forward after for a job. But I wish someone asked me why when I was applying to schools, because I'm honestly not really sure. You know, like
Yeah,
you asked me this question freshman year, I probably would not be able to answer that.
yeah, right, 100%. Yeah, just remember that's why, you know, it's a little frustrating, I know sometimes when we go through these exercises, because sometimes we're adopting things from people, which isn't bad. I mean, you should. That's part of learning is you're sort of, as my pastor always says, he's in the business of R&D, which is rip off and duplicate, right? Like you're just taking stuff and duplicating, right? So, you know, there's just this idea that, you know, we are adopting other people's things. And then as you sort of get further along, then you start to have your own personal formative things of saying, okay, that seems to kind of fit more of my personality, right? And the things that really gel best with me. So, you know, as you go through the journey of figuring out what are those whys, number one, I'd encourage you to keep revisiting it. You're going to hear me say that a lot, is have it somewhere, revisit it on a regular basis, and then just keep asking the question, does that fit? And does that feel like that's really giving me the juice and excitement in my soul? And the more specific you can get, the better. You know, you've heard me say specific is terrific and vague is the plague, right? You want to get as specific as you can One of ours is to give peace of mind to the employees. So for me, it's really a big deal to just have those moments when I get to spend time with our employees and I literally see them like that moment of just like the light turns on and all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I could do that and I didn't know I had the freedom to do that. And oh my gosh, like that completely changed the way that I see things, and that they have the freedom to be able to share experiences of like, gosh, I've never been able to do that at a place before and share this and feel safe. I didn't feel like I could actually come somewhere and someone would want me to take a risk and go for it and fail, and that I could actually just do that and it's okay. Right. That for me is one of the reasons that fuels me personally. It just excites me to see people just go, my gosh, I get it. And so, that's just the part for me that's just really super exciting, is to see people just kind of ignite and get it, for the first time in their life. So whys are a big deal, and it's important because it should fuel what you're doing. I had a kid come to me one time and he said, I want to make a lot of money. And I want to get in your industry because I know I can make a lot of money. And so I said, okay, what do you want to do? And he says, I want to take you to lunch and I want you to teach me how to do it. And I said, okay, I'll go to lunch with you. And so we went to lunch and we sat down and I looked at him across the table and I said, okay, before we go any further, I need to ask you a question. I said, why do you want to make a lot of money? And he goes, why did you just ask me that? I said, because I'm curious, why do you, like you just said, you want to make a lot of money? But I said, why? Like, who cares? And he goes, because I want to be rich. And I said, I understand that. I said, but why do you want to make a lot of money and be rich? And after about 15 minutes, he's like, I don't know if I want to have this conversation anymore. Because so he didn't know why he wanted to be rich. And I was pushing him because I wanted him to think, because I remember being in his shoes before. I just wanted to make a bunch of money. I had no idea why. Okay. And so I try to get people to think about like, well, what is it? So you get rich and then what? So you can give it away, so you can hoard it. I mean, like you have to think through those things. Like, what is it that you want to do with this money that you're going to make? Because if you don't think through it, then you'll just end up the victim of everybody else who doesn't. And they wake up and go, why do I feel so empty? And I just did all this stuff, right? And there's no purpose and meaning and significance behind what I'm doing. And so that's super important to think through those things in your own life so that you can make the best decisions. And again, have the most impact that you can for other people. If your life is self-centric, you're going to be miserable. If you want the greatest joy, it'll be outside you. Okay. So it's really important to figure out what is those whys in your life that drive and fuel you so that you can see it, and you got to get real specific. Okay. So that's just sort of part of those things. Was there anything else on the Simon Sinek that you guys want to chat about, or anything that stuck out to you, or anything that was kind of like oh yeah, never thought about that?
One thing that I loved was he talked about the Wright brothers, and I forget the name of the other guy who had money and had a bunch of connections and all that stuff. And the Wright brothers just had, the savings that they had from their bicycle shop. And yet they were the ones that were able to do it just because, they put their heads down and went to work. So I think it's awesome that the lesson that we all can make something of ourselves. We can all do something no matter what circumstance we come from.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's a really great point. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have all the resources. You don't have to have the money, the backing. It's not that. It's just that passion, that why that drives you to say, it doesn't matter what's in my way. I'm just going to go from here to there. Okay. What else?
I thought the the law of diffusion was pretty interesting. And like thinking about like how far in you need to kind of, how far of like a client or a customer base you need to reach to really kind of hit that like level to boom. and take off, and kind of tying that with the why is like, you need to have a good why to reach those first customers.
Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be something really deeper that connects to somebody's heart and not just their mind, that really makes people go, oh my gosh, yes, that is solving the deepest desire of what I want. Okay. And so that takes some thought to really think through that, right? We spend a ton of time asking clients, what are their biggest frustrations, right? Like, we really want to know, like, what is frustrating you to no end? Because we're trying to get at the heart of the matter of what's going on. And so you really have to think through what is their experience. And so you can best serve them and understand and walk a mile in their shoes, so that when they hear that message, right, they're going, that's it. That's the thing that is going to drive and move me to where I need to go. Any other thoughts or comments?
I
Okay.
mean, I thought it was interesting that some companies actually don't have a why. And I think I found out when he started giving some examples of the ads, they give their what and then they give their how. And then they just, expect you to take some sort of action. But I guess it just goes to show the importance of the why. A lot of companies don't. And I've actually never thought about that. When I was thinking about Amazon, it was like, Jeff Bezos had a really strong why. And that's why Amazon is so great today, I think.
It is. Yeah. Really deep why, right? There's something behind that. It's usually very personal, and there's something inside of that that's driving them that will resonate with other people ultimately. So you're taking something that's very personal to you, and you're starting to kind of formate something to go, okay, what is it that can really have some impact that's happened to me, that's really fueled me to be the kind of person that I want to be. That could be a tough experience that you went through. That could be a difficulty at the end of the day, right? Have you guys ever seen the movie 14 Peaks? Nothing is Impossible. It's on Netflix. So I'd highly recommend it. It was a documentary. It's done in 2021. And there's this guy, Nirmal Persia, that is he's a Sherpa. And so he's a climber all over the world. And the 14 largest peaks, most difficult peaks all through the kind of Asia Minor. There's only been, I think, one or two people in the past that have climbed all the 14 summits. And the time period that they did it in was 7 years. Okay, so just kind of do the math. That's a long time to climb all these summits. And he said, okay, he made this claim and he said, I'm going to climb all of the 14 peaks in 7 months. Okay. Bananas. I mean, you're just like, what is the matter with you? You're nuts. And so he kind of walks through this journey of how he does this. And it just blows your mind. But I want to encourage you guys to watch that if you can, if you want to. You don't have to, but it's very fascinating. And if you choose to watch it, I'm trying to train your mind a little bit here to be listening to things, but I want you to listen to the things that start to come out, which is his why. What was it that was fueling him to get to the top? Because there was probably about 3 times that he literally almost died doing this. And yet he just kept pushing through. And so I'd encourage you to watch that. And as you're watching other things that maybe inspire you, ask that question, like, what is it that's fueling that person to do these things that are just crazy and to have the impact that they're going to have. So it's pretty unbelievable, and it just to blow your mind when you watch it. It's like there's no way. And he definitely is designed very differently as well, which is super important for you to latch onto as you're trying to figure these things out. Okay, so DNA. What do we mean when we're talking about DNA? What do you think? How did we describe that, or how did you understand it, I guess?
It's like a value system that helps you make decisions.
Yeah. So it's kind of similar to the convictions, right? It's sort of, if you were describing the way things function at a particular place, there's some sort of DNA in it, right? There's a way that things function, and you could describe that as this is the DNA of Integrity Capital. So do you remember some of those DNA things for our firm that you remember at all?
Yeah, my favorite was don't call people out, call them up.
Yeah.
Because I think calling people out, there's some sort of like hostility there. Calling people up, there's a lot of concern. And now that I think about it, there's actually no reason to call people out because you can always call them up. I mean, that was just my favorite. I just love that one.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah, just call people up, right? Don't call them out, right? That's kind of more of a shame game, right? So you're trying to call somebody up. There's concern and care for them as a person, right? They matter. And so you want to see them sort of grow, right? Not that they will, but you want to give them the opportunity to do that because you do care about them as a person. And we had somebody who didn't kind of work out here just recently, and they had to exit, but it was really a positive thing, right? Even though sometimes you think it won't, but we were calling him up, and we just realized that it's just not a good fit for him. It's not a benefit for him. So now he's out doing something that I think he loves, and it's worked out really well because we didn't want to call him out, but we wanted to call him up, right, to a higher place. So that's really good. Thank you. What else? What other things did you hear about the DNA that stuck out?
I personally really like the idea of the successful failure. This idea that you can fail, like, gives you more of an ability to innovate within your company. Like, if you are never allowed to fail, you're never going to take risk. You're never going to try new things. And kind of having that openness that you can do something wrong,
Yeah.
I think is a really cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to have the ability and the permission to go ahead and step out and give it a shot. And it's totally fine. In fact, it's celebrated with us. We want to celebrate when you went for it, because we want to see those when magical things happen when you go for it and take a shot, and so that's a really big deal. So precursor for innovation and things of that magnitude is you have to have a safe place to be able to give it a shot, right? Otherwise you kind of get your hands slapped when you go into the cookie jar. So that's good. What else? Any other thoughts?
I like the be a wisdom seeker one, just because I think no matter where you are in life, there's always the opportunity to learn and get new wisdom and kind of new ideas for things. And it's kind of something as a college student right now, I'm realizing. I'm sure I'm going to continue to realize down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a wisdom junkie, right? I just love if I can hear a new nugget or two, I'm on it. And so we always want to be seeking for wisdom so that we can learn from those that are way ahead of us and bypass go and just see if we can accelerate to where we need to go and not have to try to reinvent the wheel. So we want to be wisdom seekers for sure. What else? Any other thoughts?
I like the one where it talked about handing the relay battalion on, basically like building up the next people that will come and, work with us or take the place of other people, because I feel like that is also a way to, it's almost a why in of itself. If you're like, I really just want to help people, like kind of what you and Michelle are doing with all of us as interns. You guys are, I feel like it's clear for all of us to see that you guys have a strong why to help us, as we're moving on. And so I feel like that is something that's super important.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, just passing that on and saying, for us, we don't see it as a threat, but I always say, look, work yourself out of your own job, right? Like, I don't see that as a threat. I said, if you are doing that, you're actually adding tremendous value. And so that's going to do nothing but accentuate what it is you're doing and where you're going to go. And so just handing that baton on and thinking bigger, right? This is the best thing we can do to keep kind of expanding and growing and making sure that we're just way better if lots of other people are kind of learning and understanding. So that's it's sort of an abundant mentality, right? Versus scarcity principle. So it's good. Any other comments before I land the plane a little bit on one final thing?
I thought that the getting 70% and then running is freeing. I think, yeah, that's what Michelle was talking about earlier. And I just think that's great because you can't really expect yourself to get something 100% of the time, and getting 70% and then learning from your mistakes and growing and just learning how to get that extra 30% to get you to that full, complete 100%. It's a really big thing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Just wanting to get enough information, need to get some information, right? Need to get enough to where you go, I think, okay, I have some framework by which I'm can move forward, but I don't need 90 or 80 or 100. Just need 70 just so I can go, and then I'll learn the rest of the way as I go. It's okay to be messy, but we definitely action can trump the sort of perfectionism mentality for sure. And we always say here that we're shooting for excellence, not perfection, right? Because perfection isn't something that actually exists. Leave that one up to God, right? So it's just something that's not there. It's not part of reality, and so we want to just move to a place of excellence. Okay. Good. Well, good discussion, guys. I love hearing from you guys. You got really smart minds. Wish I had your mind when I was your age. So thanks for sharing all of this. So for next week, on Monday, I want you to go through kind of the assignment of feedback from friends, why celebrating matters, why innovation matters, and then we're going to start kind of diving into an assignment for innovation. We're going to have you guys go through and actually do an innovation assignment. So I want you guys to start kind of diving into that, and it'll give you instructions on what we want you to do. But that's when it starts to get kind of fun. You get to use your creative minds that you guys have and come up with some cool idea and product that you guys will be super famous one day and look back and I'll say, I knew those guys. So smart. So if you guys want to dive into that for next time, and if you have any questions, concerns, I definitely want you guys to feel free. You can reach out and let us know. And we definitely want to be here to serve you guys and help you in any way that we can. And hope you guys enjoy your awesome weekend that's going to come up here and do something fun. I'm sure you guys will get on your private jet and fly out somewhere to some island, somewhere in the middle. And we'll go from there. So, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you. And thanks for all your hard work. You guys are working really hard. So thanks for putting in the effort and the time. We see it in you guys. I've been really impressed thus far of just the effort, the energy you guys are putting into it. I can tell you guys are really diligent. So I just want you to know that we notice that. We watch for it and we notice it. So great job. So keep it up.